There is a persistent cultural assumption that happiness is a locked destination. We convince ourselves that reaching specific milestones, a promotion, a marriage, or the deed to a house, finally earns us the right to feel content. To investigate this, a recent project sat down with 50 people over the age of 75. In coffee shops, in living rooms, and over video calls, they were asked a single question: what actually brought you lasting joy after decades of searching? These individuals came from wildly different backgrounds and careers, yet their reflections on a lifetime of experience consistently contradicted the standard cultural formulas for success and the typical list of grand adventures. Their collective answers suggest a central thesis for this study. Finding true contentment requires a skeptical reevaluation of the achievement myths our society promotes. Clinging to the idea of happiness as a future destination acts as a barrier, often preventing us from experiencing the reality of our lives as they happen in the present. Almost every senior interviewed fell into a specific pattern. They spent their 30s and 40s convinced that their restlessness would finally stop once they reached a major life goal. When they arrived, the restlessness remained, and they simply moved the goalposts. The Harvard study of adult development has tracked human well-being for over 85 years. It found that conventional markers of success, like career achievement, wealth, and social class, are remarkably poor predictors of how happy someone will be in their 80s. The participants who reported the highest levels of joy late in life were those who actively stopped chasing milestones. They learned to pay attention to the details of their daily existence, instead of rushing through them. These seniors described a version of joy that was much quieter than they expected. It felt less like winning a race and more like resting, the simple act of savoring a cup of tea or reading without an agenda. Treating life as a race to be won forces us into a state of constant rushing, which often blinds us to the ordinary moments where joy actually resides. A second myth involves the drive to accumulate influential connections. Many participants spent decades saying yes to prestige-building obligations, believing these professional and social rosters would secure their place in the world. Dr. Robert Waldinger, the current director of the Harvard study, notes that the quality of a person's relationships at age 50 is a vastly better predictor of physical health at 80 than their cholesterol levels. Stanford's socio-emotional selectivity theory explains this shift. As people age and recognize their time is limited, they naturally begin to prioritize emotionally meaningful connections over shallow social obligations. The seniors interviewed often regretted the time they spent networking at events they didn't enjoy. They wished they had said no more frequently to those demands, and I love you more often to the reliable friends and family who were always there. They also realized the physical cost of holding on to old grudges. Refusing to forgive keeps the body in a state of chronic stress. Letting go is a profound way to stop carrying a burden that was never yours to begin with. Investing energy in impressing strangers or harboring past anger drains the resources needed for the deep, unglamorous relationships that actually sustain human health. There is also the myth that we can safely treat the body as an industrial machine. We are taught to ignore physical limits to serve our ambitions, often wearing burnout as a badge of honor. These 75-year-olds realized that ignoring chronic fatigue and tension was a profound mistake. They learned that peace requires treating the body as a biological home rather than a tool to be used until it breaks. This physical neglect often mirrors a mental habit, anticipatory dread. Many participants spent their peak years consumed by the fear of illnesses or failures that never actually happened. This chart visualizes our tendency to overestimate disaster. We build a towering mountain of anticipated negative events, but when we track the actual negative events that materialize, the line is almost flat. The real damage to our well-being comes entirely from the worry itself. Sacrificing physical health and mental peace for the sake of future security ensures that we will be too exhausted or anxious to enjoy that future when it finally arrives. Looking at all 50 interviews, it is clear that these seniors did not lead lives free of tragedy or financial stress. They didn't have easier paths than the generations following them. They arrived at a shared realization. Happiness is a natural state that we often unintentionally block. We construct these blockages through constant busyness, imaginary worries, and stored resentment. We develop a habit of rushing through the ordinary to get to a future we imagine will be better. The data suggests we can drop this baggage now. We do not have to wait until we are 75 to stop waiting for life to feel the way we were told it should. Life's most meaningful experiences occur within the quiet, ordinary seconds happening right now for those who stop to pay attention.